Good morning, everyone. We learned in the last 2 days about the spiritual adventures of Abraham, the first Jew. Exactly what happened when Abraham was told by God to go from his place, and then later he was told to circumcise himself. And next week we'll learn about how he was told to sacrifice his son. They're pretty strange things, especially to be written in the Bible, which the Bible is supposed to be a book which guides a certain group of people. In this case, it guides everybody in the world. So what is the purpose of God, who is the creator of the whole universe, telling one particular man to circumcise himself? And that's supposed to have some sort of a lasting effect. It's true that the Jewish people do circumcise their children, even now, and we do it in part because of what Abraham did, but really we do it because there's a commandment which is given much later in the Torah. It's given in Parshas Tazria, later on in the book of Leviticus. There's the commandment, Yom Hashmini Yamol Basar L'Asal, on the 8th day you should circumcise the flesh of your children. And then we learn where it is. But the power. So what exactly is happening over here? Abraham is given a commandment by God himself. I mean, God hasn't got anything better to do. He's creating the whole entire world, creating all the universe with all the stars and all the angels. You know how many angels there are? It says there's like 100,000 angels in every group of angels, and there's infinite numbers of groups of angels. The Aleph Alafim, Shamshuni says Gedudav, is in every Gedud, there's tens of thousands of angels, hundreds of thousands, and in every Gedud, Gedud means a group. Angels, God's creating all these angels. And God comes down to one person, Abraham, personally, and tells him a major important message. So you think the important message would be, conquer the world, or conquer, a fifth of the world, or how to get into heaven. Here is the key to the afterlife, or the meditation, how to realize the ultimate highness of the oneness of the spirit and the nirvana. Who knows? No, God says, Abraham, circumcise yourself. End of message. That's it. That's the whole message. So the Rebbe says we have no idea how incredibly significant this is to each and every human being in the world, that Abraham circumcised himself. We have absolutely no idea how important and beneficial this was to all mankind. So first of all, we have to remember that God created the world, the whole entire world, and he put in the world one man. And this one man was supposed to conquer the whole world, at least put everything in its place. And conquering the world means that everything runs efficiently, the way it's supposed to. To the degree there won't even be any death in the world. Everything will be so, how do you say, alive and lubricated with life and joy and meaning and infinity, that everything would just, at least man, would go live eternally. I don't know about the animals, but so you see that one man is important, and that's why God created all the other creations. He created them in groups, but man he created single. There's a Mishnah in Sanhedrin. Why did God create man single? Because to tell you that every single man is a whole world. Every single man is a whole world. And in this case, we're talking about the Jewish people. The Jewish people, they were chosen by God to tell everybody exactly this, how important they are. And to tell everybody, like it says, that they're made in the image of God. That's our job. And the first Jew was Abraham. So that's Abraham, when he got circumcised, when God told him to circumcise himself, that's when God changed his name. And the meaning of the name is that now you used to be Avram, which means a high father. and the Rebbe explained this according to Kabbalah. And now you're going to be the father of all mankind. All humanity will depend on you for direction and for inspiration and for education, to let us know why we're here, what we're supposed to be doing. And so the world will be productive and the world will be meaningful. And Abraham was the one who did this. Now, this whole thing really is a study in life. Life. What is life? Huh? The meaning of life. What is life? Life is a very big mystery. On one hand, it's the most common thing in the world. Everybody's alive. And God forbid to take somebody's life is a terrible thing. But on the other hand, nobody knows what life is. Absolutely nobody has any idea. There's all these philosophers and epistemologists or whatever, and they try to figure out, what is life, what is meaning, what is ethics, what is bad, what is good, what is consciousness, what is feeling, what is love, they philosophize on it. But the fact of the matter is that they really have no idea what they're talking about. I mean, they know what they're saying. They're really good speakers, but exactly what is life? So the Kabbalah books, that's really what they're discussing. What is life? What is being? Where it comes from? And according to Judaism, the message of Judaism is that God creates everything, and that God has a personality, and that God cares. And that what it says, that we're made in the image of God, it gives us a little bit of an idea by looking at man what God's personality is. And this becomes really awesome when we realize that God is creating everybody all the time. We talked about this 1,000 times, that we are actually being created right now. Everything's being created by God. Nothing has any real independent existence. God is creating everything that there is all the time. What's he creating it from? He's creating it from nothing. What does that mean? I have no idea. Nobody has any idea. We have no idea what it means, nothing. Impossible to comprehend. And from this nothing, God is creating everything. So here's that this level of nothing that God is creating from, says that's like the level in Hebrew, it's the highest of the 10 Seerah. It's called Chachma. Chachma comes from nothing. And that was Abraham. Abraham was Av Ram. Av is Chachma. This level of Chachma is very, very high. And when God told him to circumcise himself, he changed his name, gave him an extra hay, stuck an extra hay over there. And that brought, just like Adam, the whole world depended on Adam. Well, the whole world depended on Abraham. And that brought this revelation of Chachma, of life, into the world. So let's go. Here we go. So we said, if we remember, we're learning this mimer over here. Your name will not be called Avram anymore. Your name, Avram, it'll be called Avraham. That's what God said to you. Ki Av Hamon Goyim, because I have made you the father of a multitude of nations, and the commentaries say it means the whole world. Okay, so when did Abraham get this name changed? When God told him to circumcise himself. The Midrash, one of the Midrash is a book of explanations of Torah. So it says, why did God give Abraham the circumcision? Because God hates the foreskin, and he loves the circumcision. So it says, okay, so why did God create people with foreskins if he hates it? So the answer is given like these beans called turmasim. You have to boil them 10 times, whatever, and then they become soft and edible. So the Rebbe says, what's the comparison? So the Rebbe explained, I'm just going over what he said. He said that, why don't we see God? Why don't we feel God? At Mount Sinai, for instance, when the Jews got the Torah, they felt God, and their souls jumped out of their bodies, it says. It was such a big revelation that they couldn't take it. Too much life, too much. Like putting 1,000,000 volts into a 2-volt machine. Couldn't take it, too much life. So therefore God makes what's called a masach. He makes these divisions and separations and concealments and veils, so that he conceals his oneness, because he wants there to be a world. He wants there to be a world. That's the whole story of the Bible. God wants there to be a world, and the world is very important to God. But because of all these contractions, it can be that the world serves exactly the opposite purpose that God created it for. God created the world in order that man would transform it. And it comes out exactly the opposite. Comes out exactly the opposite. It's like building a big baseball stadium or soccer stadium or something like that. It holds, 1 million people, getting so people will come, and all of a sudden all the players decide to go and attack the audience, right? They all go and attack the audience, beating people up. I mean, after all, they're all athletes, and the audience, they're not. So they go, what type of thing is that? It's exactly the opposite reason that the stadium was made. The stadium was supposed to be made so the people will come and they'll enjoy this contest. It's the same thing. God made the world because he wants us to transform it. My example is maybe not the best. Maybe it's close to the worst, but anyways, God made the world so that we would transform the world. That's going to be this idea of Torah. And it comes out that the world does exactly the opposite. Right? People make war against God. They forget about God. There's no such thing. See, the people come to see the soccer game. They pay each player $1 million or whatever. And the soccer teams, they just, break out their picnic boxes and they sit down and eat and get all drunk and roll around on the grass. So who wants to see a thing like that? Same thing. God made the world and he gave everybody directions, what they're supposed to do. And everybody just sort of does what they want. And so comes along Abraham, and Abraham, he's going to educate the world. He is going to educate the world. He says, how is he going to educate the world? He says, because the world is made in order to be changed. True, the world has man is given this propensity that he can do whatever he wants to, but okay. So he says, that's the whole idea of Shabbat. Also, the Shabbat is also a point of holiness put into the world. It affects the 3 days before, it affects the 3 days afterwards. That elevates the world. There's aspects of the world that can be taught, that can be elevated. Right? It's like if a person comes into the world and he doesn't know, he starts to train ants and cats. You can't do that. You can't train cats and ants and things like that. Now he tries to train people. Oh, that'll work. The same thing. There's things in the world that can't be controlled, but there's things that can be. And that the Rebbe calls Chulin ala Taharas HaKodesh. Mundane things in the world that can be vessels to reveal God. Where do we get up to? Here we go. Okay. So that's what it means. That we, by means of working in the weekdays, the 6 weekdays, and doing what's called the 32 types of work that are forbidden on Shabbat, Zoreah, planting, plowing, harvesting, etc. Namely, by means of our deeds, if we do them according to the way that God wants, we draw down a new revelation of God, v'hithavut davar chadash, that we can see that the world is being created brand new, that God creates the world constantly with his goodness. So that's what it means, that God created the whole world, so we should fix it up. And who is the one that's teaching everybody what exactly, according to what rules are you supposed to fix it up? How is the world supposed to look? Afterwards, that's Abraham, to transform the whole world. And that's the idea of turmasim, of these beans. I don't know what they are now today, but anyway, these beans. It says that you boil them and the shell even becomes more tasty than the fruit. So riechim tikun, but you have to fix them up first. You have to boil them and work lafoch to transform the bitterness of these beans to sweetness. Liot misha terach be'erev Shabbos, like it says, whoever makes an effort before Shabbat, he will eat on Shabbat. You have to prepare for Shabbat. She'it aleh call that everything will be elevated to the level of Shabbat, to the Sabbath day. He Shabbat, he menucha, because the Sabbath day is the day of rest. Why is Sabbath the day of rest? First of all, who says there's such a thing as Sabbath? I mean, you can tell astronomically, you can tell which day of the month it is. You look at the moon, you can say which day of the month it is. It's full. So you can tell which day, even of the year it is. Look at the seasons. You can look at the position or whatever it is. But no one can tell which day of the week it is. There's no such thing as a week. According to science, whatever you want, astronomy, anything, there's no such thing as a week, 7 days. Who made that up? Right? Just live life, just go on, work for a few days and make an arbitrary day and stop, when you get tired or something like that, or take a little rest and just work. Napoleon tried to make a 10-day week. I don't remember what they call it. There's still some people in France, that's what I heard. That they have a 30-day calendar and 10-day week. Makes sense. What's wrong with that? If there's more work done, you have less shot. Instead of having 4 rest days in the month, you have 3 rest days. So you get more work. You get more out of the workers. Every 9 days work. Then what's wrong with that? Right? Make a 30-day week. Work for 3 days, and then make a 3-day week. Who says you have to make a 7-day week? Where did they get this idea from? It says they got it from God. God created the world. 6 days he created the world. On the 7th day he did nothing. What do you mean? What does that mean he did nothing? It says the 7th day there's a tremendously spiritual thing that goes out, that all of the energy in the world somehow or other gets connected back to the Creator. And the Jewish people, they're supposed to be the representatives of the Creator to show the whole world that that's what's going on. That's really what's going on. It's not an arbitrary thing. Spiritually, that's what's going on. Since God created the world 5,782 years ago, in a month, 1 month, 2 months now, as going into the 2nd month. As soon as God created the world, he created it in a pattern. And this pattern, it's explained, there's a book called Seerah, the pattern of creation. God could have created the world in one instant, in less than, God created time. So it didn't take any time to make time. Before God created time, there was no time. So God could have created the whole thing and just, the whole business just at once. Why did he have to schlep the whole thing out for 7 days for it? Each day was 24 hours, each hour is 30, because this is according to principles, to Kabbalistic principles, that each minute has 30 seconds to it, and each hour has 30 minutes to it, and etc. Each hour has 60 minutes. Again, each minute has 60 seconds to it, and each the hour has 60 minutes to it, and each day has 24 hours to it, and each month has 30 days. This is according to Kabbalistic principles. And so at the end of each month, there's a certain revelation of godliness. At the end of each week, there's a certain. The whole idea of Shabbat is that everything goes back up to its source. It reconnects. That Shabbat is the same letters as return. Teshuv, teshav. That's what's called bittul, surrender. Like Shmona Esrei, like when we daven the prayer in 3 times a day, and we return ourselves, our conscience, we think about God. We return our energy to the Creator. We return our hearts to the Creator, the Creator. The EF is possible to be every day Shabbat, Kamo Kula Shmona Esrei, just like it's impossible the whole day to be in this prayer of Shmona Esrei when we stand and we're only thinking about God. Rak Techila, only in the beginning, you have to have weekdays. But Tikkun Zen, that's what God wanted. He wants there to be a world. He created 6 days, And the last day was the Shabbat day. The same thing, that's why you put man in the world, to fix the world up. The Tikkun Zeh, this is Gamkein Bechinas Mila. This is the whole, this really began with the circumcision. Because before Abraham was circumcised, Hayashmo Avram, it was called Avram. Av is the beginning of revelation. Like I said before, that's the level of Chachma, the source of life. Called Yesh Mi'ayin, something from nothing. Shehu Makor Ashba, that is the source of all, when I say life, all blessing. It's called Av, that's why it's called Father. This Ram, and this is the highest level of God's wisdom. It's called Ram al Kol Goyim, that God was above all of the nations, above any comprehension. Because God purposely concealed himself. That's what we're talking about before. God concealed himself so that this essence of life wouldn't be too much in the world. It wouldn't be too much of a flow into the world. But when Abraham circumcised himself, it was changed from the name Avram, which means very high, Father, elevated above the world. The world had no access to these ideas of the source of life, and therefore the whole world was sunk into idolatry. Everyone was worshiping all sorts of stars and people and ghosts and spirits and angels and statues that represented these things. But by the means of the bris, the circumcision, Abraham was called Avraham, Av Hamon Goyim, Lahosif, Hitkalut, Nitzutzot, to add and to gather up the sparks. What are these sparks? We talked about this before. The whole world is created for a purpose, and this purpose is in everything in the world. Everything there is in the world. As soon as the thing doesn't have a purpose, you throw it away. With the purpose, the purpose of a thing, that's like the spark of life in it. You have a table. What's the purpose of it? To put things on the table. Put food on the table, to put books on the table, put money on the table. But that's as soon as the table is not useful, then you throw it away. That means the spark is gone. Now, what is the spark? Is the utility of the thing. If you use, that's the whole idea of the Torah. The Torah teaches us how to use everything in the world properly, to connect to the Creator, to use it for what it was created for, to somehow or other reveal the Creator and His creation. You eat food, you eat only food that's permissible to eat, not stolen food. A non-Jew can't eat a limb that was taken from an animal or flesh taken from an animal before the animal died. Right? You have to eat in a proper way, not like a glutton. You have to use the energy for proper things, for being productive, for being loving, for being caring, for being positive, being happy. Like that, the table is used for the proper things. You just put money on the table. Money has to be honest money. It has to be money that you earn by working. In other words, the table has to be used for a positive purpose. That means the sparks raised up. Before Abraham was circumcised, everybody was selfish. Nobody cared anything about God. Nobody even knew there was such a thing as God. And if they did, they didn't care. Once in a while, it says that Sodom and Gomorrah, we just finished learning, that they knew God and they intended to rebel against Him. Kiliota ora begiloi gomer, for this ray of godliness to be revealed in the world, so that people know that God exists and what God is, and that God is creating them, and that God is a plan for every single human being, every single moment of life, right? That we can, if we want, be part of it. Ad sheitkarev anitzutz likhalal tachat kanvei shechina, until the spark, the usefulness of everything, can be connected back to its source, and there's everything in the world like putting a puzzle together, right? All of a sudden, everything makes sense. Who is by means of the circumcision? This whole business, this whole big change, came because one person, Abraham, circumcised himself. Mila, because what is Mila? Mila is the letters Mal Yud K. Mal Yud K. This is Chassid Gur. I mean, this might seem a little bit bizarre. I mean, one person is going to change the world, but we saw, just like, what was it, 70 years ago, something, that one person stood up in Germany, one person, and he sunk the whole entire world into a bloodbath, and the German people were completely hypnotized by this man. If you ever saw pictures of the speeches in Nuremberg, there's like 1 million people there, and they're all like with stars in their eyes. Look at one person. One person instantly changed the consciousness of a whole million. 75 million people. How many people are there living in Germany? 70 million people got up an army of like 4 million people. That's something crazy, right? Went and made war against the world, just killed people indiscriminately. But so one person could do so much bad, is how much more so one person could do good. A little bit of light pushes away a lot of darkness. So just like this one person, he was the conduit, he was the funnel. All this evil and destruction came into the world, as Abraham was the havdil, to separate, not even to mention in the same breath. He was the conduit, the pipe that brought good into the world, order, life, building, like the creation into the world. Meaning, that was done when he circumcised himself, this one person. Because Mila, that's what Moshiach is going to do. That's the whole idea of Moshiach. Moshiach is just going to finish the work that Abraham started. Bring all of the world, the whole entire world, to realize there's a creator and to worship only the creator. People will stop. They'll drop all the religions, all the religions. It's incredible. There won't be any more Catholics or Protestants or Muslims or Buddhists or this. They'll all say, hey, we were mistaken. We made a mistake. Let's just worship the creator alone. We tried. It was maybe nice ideas. But, you can't blame us. We didn't know any better at that, right? But the Moshiach will make it that everybody will know better. And that's the lessons of the Jewish people, and that began with the circumcision. Mila is the letters of Mal, Yud K. Yud and Hey. Yud and Hey, those are the first two letters of God's name. That corresponds to Chachma we talked about in Bina. We'll talk about that a little bit more when we talk about Seerah. Mal means to speak. Hem Chachma and Bina. Mal is hu lashon hit galut, revelation. Mal is from the word of malala, in Aramaic, to speak. Hadibur, that speech, is what reveals what's in a person's mind. So when Abraham did this thing called Mila, it was Mal, it revealed, like speech reveals. Mil, Yud Ke, those are the first two letters of God's name. It corresponds to two aspects of God, which are called Chachma, which we just explained, and Bina. The highest aspects of godliness were actually revealed in the world by this person. In other words, when Abraham circumcised himself, as the world became more receptive to godliness, to what's really good. Liota Chachma Yotze Mikoach Elapol, that this aspect of Chachma that we said was the source of all life. That's how it began. That's how it began the class. It went from potential to actual. And from concealed to be revealed. And therefore, in the future, it says, it says in the prophecies of Isaiah, then I will transform to the nations, I think it's Isaiah, to look it up, transform to the nations a clear speech, that all of the nations will not call out to their various gods, whatever, they'll call out only to the Creator. And it says, Ra'u kol basar yachtav, all flesh will see together. Even the flesh will feel that there's a Creator. I mean, this is a tremendous paradigm change. What do they call it? A Copernican change, right? Until Copernicus, everybody thought that the world went around, but the sun went around the earth, and he revealed that the earth goes around the sun, which is not true, but nevertheless, that's what he revealed. And you can work, science works out very well, according to Copernicus's way, it works out very well. In any case, it's a whole change of paradigm. Instead of the same thing, we think we're the center of the world, we're the ultimate reality, we call all the shots, that we are, but the fact is that we're creations. We are being created. This is against human sense, human sensitivity, but the fact is we're being created. We're miracles. The whole world is an incredible, incredible miracle every single instant. And God creates it according to the same exact principles of Kabbalah all the time, same thing. So it's because it's so constant. And one of the things that God put into the world is our own egotism and our own concealment, like we said, all these veils, etc. So we can think that there's no such thing as God. Like we said before, that Paro said, the river belongs to me, I created myself. But in the future, it says, everyone will see, Kipi Hashem Diber, everyone will see that we're exactly this, that we're being creation, that we're being created, that it's the word of God that is speaking and creating everything. Because then there'll be revelation of the speech of God. That's mal. Mal means to speak. Milah in Hebrew, the word for a word is milah, a word. Milah. Malel means to speak. Dibur Hidgalut Elokut, Hidgalut Chachma. Then in the future, because of Abraham, and the Mashiach will cause that there will be a revelation of this aspect of Chachma, V'gilezu, and this revelation above, before it comes into the world, is what's called Chashmal. Chashmal. In Hebrew, the word Chashmal has been utilized to mean electricity. I guess it's alternating current because it's sometimes revealed and sometimes not. Chashmal. And the word chashmal means chash, means being quiet, and mal means to speak. In other words, alternating, sometimes not revealed, sometimes revealed. Itim chashot, there's sometimes when God is not revealed, that's the pulse of life, called the pulsation of life. That's where time comes from. Godliness pulsating, sometimes revealed in the world, sometimes not. I know sometimes the life force of the world is concealed. Like it says, the fence around wisdom is silence. Sometimes you have to be quiet. And sometimes it is revealed. That godliness is revealed, like on the holidays, Shabbat. Also, mal, the word mal also comes from the language of hu yeshed mimuli, to be, I say, corresponding. It's like, I say, opposite me on the table. It says mimuli. Hu perish lenegdi, like opposite, not opposing me, but lenegdi. That also the word opposing is also used in the two ways, but corresponding to me. Kolomar, davar shenira keilu hu lenochach enough. Mal also means mul, means in front of us, right in front of us, that it seems that it's right in front of our own eyes. Ulamata baramatachton, below, hine kasiv, it is written, Nasa adam et salmenu kidmotenu. God said, let us make man in our own eyes, in our own image. I mean, I hate to keep referring to this, but it seems to be a good example, but from the opposite. You can learn from everybody. Either you can learn what to do or what not to do. Right? In Nazi Germany, so everybody was convinced. All of a sudden, everybody's perception changed. Suddenly, they saw everything just as Germany and not Germany. That's it. If you're not Germany, then you're not really alive. It's okay to kill a person who's not, your servant or not under Germany. It's okay. And therefore, people joyously, the best, the most talented the youth, claimed that the airplanes and bombed also, Belgium and who knows what, and Luxembourg, all these places they just bombed, in France and Poland. Innocent people just bombing them because they weren't Germans. Simple. All of a sudden, everybody's perception just changed of what is reality, right? So that's in a destructive way. And what Mashiach will do is that everybody's perception will change. That you'll see how valuable and precious everything in the world is. That it's all godliness, right? Just like in Germany, they said if it's not German, it's not good. So the same thing, we'll look and we'll see if it's not godly, it's not good. And everything is godly. We'll just see the good in everything. That's what it is. What is bad? Things that go against God. Okay, what do you do with the thing that's against God? What it says in the Torah to do. Try to convince him otherwise. Ignore him, whatever. There are certainly extreme cases. People, let's say they make war against the Jewish people. People are murderers. So there's the death penalty. But most of these people, God will take care of himself. The essence of Moshiach is peace. That's what it says by man, that man is made in the image of God. Yesh Gamkein Masach, there is also, just like God has the separation, and he conceals himself also in man, there's a separation, al Ever HaMashpia, Shehu, which is, let's go, this. Bebechinas Ram. Did I skip something? 1 minute. Excuse me. Right. Hanistros Lashem Elokeinu, Chachma Vabina, Vaniglos Lanu, and the revelations are to us. Excuse me, just 1 second. Yes. So the same thing is by a person. Every person is created with a foreskin. So this the organ of procreation is covered over by a foreskin. The same thing was Abraham. What did Abraham do by circumcising himself? Is because man is created in the image of God, is this made it possible to be revealed, to take away the concealment over this organ of procreation. That's what it says, Anistros Lashem Elokeinu. The concealed things are to God. Chachma and Bina, and the niglos, but the revealed things are to us and our children, that by means of the circumcision, Nasa niglos lanu, there became revealed to us this level of Chachma and Bina, the source of life, and to our children. Shagiloi Eino Ella Bebechinas Lebanenu. This revelation of God is only to the offspring, the results. Shehu Bechinas Holada. Kilachin, therefore, Kasher Nidvosev Hey, when there was added the letter Hey, and Avram, Mikol Makom Lo Nekara Resh, Abraham's name was changed. Instead of Avram, Ram means very high. God said, I want you to come down and be revealed. That's like the last Hey of God's name. So you think his name would, instead of be called Avraham, it would be called Avham. You should take away this resh to be ram, to be high. So no, he didn't. That God wants this high level to be revealed. Adayan hu ram, because Abraham still remained high up. He still had this high revelation. He was still connected to the essence of God. He still was able to be in the world with the essence of God, but it wasn't concealed like before. Elishit, just there was the added the letter Hey, Leos Bechinas Ramza Begiloi, so it should be revealed. And that is Mila. That's the whole idea of the circumcision. Higiloi, this is a level of revelation because Abraham, like we say, was in the image of God. Every human being is in the image of God, especially the Jewish people. As this circumcision made available and revealed the fact that there is a creator and that the creator is creating us, and it'll only be completely revealed in the days of the Mashiach. That's another level, which is called Priya. Higila yoter como para et rosha isha, shchita mufurat. And Priya means to open up totally. In the organ of procreation, there's a thick skin. That's called that's removed by Mila. And then there's this thin skin, which is underneath, which covers over, which the person who is a mohel, someone who does the circumcision, has to know how to remove that also. V'hamesech hamavdil bein kodesh l'chol, that's the separation between holy and mundane and profane of Yisrael. That's chulin shenasa al Torah Kodesh. That's the physical things in the world that do not reveal godliness, but can reveal godliness. Shehi ikar havdalah. This is the main separation. Ki b'shiva havdalas lahavdil bein atame, etc. There's 7 divisions, but we don't use those 7 divisions. Kolkach ki me'achar shemavirim havdalah shebein kodesh l'chol. Since we remove the brit milah, the thick skin, as this makes it possible for the Jews to reveal godliness in the world, to reveal the Creator in the world. It all depends on the Jewish people. So we see here a very interesting thing. Number one, that God reacts to what we do. God reacts to what we do. Very important. There are some people that say that God does not react to what we do. And some people even say that it's blasphemy to say such a thing because God is so high up. But the answer is no. God is saying that God does not react to what we do. That limits God. God is much higher than that, much bigger than being relegated just to being spiritual. God actually reacts to what we do. And that the fact that we're created in God's image, that even adds to that our deeds have an effect on the revelation of God in the world. And that's what a bracha is, a blessing is. We cause God to be revealed. Really, the beginning of this whole thing was when God said, Lech lecha, that you will be a blessing to Abraham. But it really started in a big way, in a revealed way, when God told Abraham to circumcise himself. That was the beginning of revelation of God in the world. Because just as Abraham has this organ of procreation, so God, so to speak, also does. And it's called, what is the organ of procreation of God? That's the tzaddikim in the world. That's the holy Jews that are totally devoted and surrendered to the Creator. And they say that through these Jews, the Creator reveals himself in the world. And that's the whole idea of circumcision, being the covenant between the Jewish people and God, means the covenant between the world and God. There's the ability for God to reveal his essence into the world through the Brit Milah. And that's why, by the way, we'll learn about this in the Sikha now. That's the whole idea of the Holy Temple also. And that's why Abraham was also given the land of Israel. That's in this week's Torah portion. So what do we learn here? We learned that God chose Abraham to reveal godliness in the world. And the way that he did it was by giving him these orders. And the main covenant that God made with Abraham was the circumcision. And then Abraham's name was changed to be the father of all nations, to reveal godliness to the entire world. And this will only be revealed in a total way in the Moshiach, which is supposed to be any instant now. Good. Let's now learn the Sikha of the Rebbe and Devar Malchut.